Well, good evening again. Here we are for our live Facebook tonight for Billericay Brewing. I'm Trevor, founder of Billericay Brewing, and each week we're sharing one of our different beers. And it's we had Mayflower Gold, then we had Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll the last couple of weeks, and this week we've gone totally different. We've gone for a dark beer, so we have gone for a Woody's-Bark, which is our 4.3% stout. So, no messing around, let's get this open. So, open the bottle like this, okay. You'll see, very different from the beers we've had over to IPAs previously, pale ales, India pale ales. We've now got our stout, so much darker there. So much darker. Okay, so here we go. So stouts, a lot of people think stouts an Irish drink, but actually originated in London originally. We'll tell you about that story in another video, but here we are with our WoodysBark. So, cheers. Now that's an absolute beauty, WoodysBark. 4.3% stout. A lovely dark beer. Made a few years ago, and we one of the ones we're most proud about, because last year at SEBA, the local SEBA Awards, which is the Society of Independent Brewers, their regional awards, it won gold medal in its category. So it's going to get up against all other beers in the whole of the eastern region. So it covers, as well as Essex, it covers Norfolk, Cambridgeshire, Suffolk, Lincolnshire. Covers a really wide area, and we're up against some really good beers, and we came out first there, and as a result we went to the national championships in March at Liverpool. There you're against the best beers in the country there, so they winners from all the different regions. We didn't win anything there, but it was great just to see our beer on tap at a national award, so we're really proud of that. So I see that Rick's watching, so a big well done for Rick for brewing that. So one of our beers we're really proud of. So, another sip of that. So, as you see, a dark beer, nice head there. Doesn't look, you don't get your big foamy head that you get with Guinness, but you get far better taste out of it. So, with it being a stout, it's got those rich, roasty, chocolatey flavours that you get from a stout. You've got a nice bitterness from the hops in there as well. So, it's hops, we talked about a lot about hops last time. Now last week we were talking about American hops. This is all British hops in this one. So British hops for bitterants, so Challenger and Pilgrim, and then for aroma, Bramling Cross. So all British hops in there. Now the thing I was going to talk to you a bit about was about the malt that goes into it. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But just a little bit of story of the beer. So the beer is WoodysBark, number 23 there, so say 4.3% stout. Now it's named after Woody. Now that's a little picture of Woody there. Now Woody was our brewery dog and a very much loved family pet. He passed away sadly 2.5 years ago, but he was a very much loved brewery dog and family pet. I've got another photo of him hopefully here that I can show you, so hopefully that shows him there. That's Woody. On the beach, absolutely loving it. He was a bit of a wild lad, was Woody. He was Patterdale Terrier, and any of you know Patterdale Terriers. They can be quite a handful, but they're lovely, characterful dogs. So there he was on the beach. We don't think he'd ever been. We've got him as a rescue dog, and we don't think he'd ever been to a beach before, because I remember the first time we went to a beach, he was absolutely amazed by it, and he absolutely loved going to the beach. He loved walking, and he was a brilliant pub dog as well. I remember after we got him as a rescue dog, I said, "Oh, I'm going to take him to the pub," and we weren't sure about him because, as I say, he was a rescue. We didn't know his history. My wife said to me, "Oh God, that's a bit risky taking him to the pub, isn't it?" And I said, "Well, give it a go. What's the point of having a dog if you can't take the dog to the pub?" So went to the pub, and he was an absolute dream. He absolutely sat. He got my pint, sat at the table, he went under the table and fell asleep. He was brilliant. We've got another dog, Lucy, who was, again, a gorgeous dog, but a little bit nervy, not so much of a pub dog, but I'm sure I'll get a change anyway. So, yeah, so we had a whole range of beers named after Woody. We had Woody's Wag with the first one because he always has to wag his tail. Woody's Bite, which was one where we added a little bit of chili and lime to that to make it a bit spicy, and then Woody's Bark. Okay, and then we actually, after Woody passed away, we made a very strong version of this, Imperial Woody's Bark, made it 7.5%, and then we stuck it in a whiskey barrel for 3 months. It went from 7.5% to 9.5%, and we call that one Woody's Legacy. That's amazing beer. So you picked up a glass of that, and it just smelled of whiskey. You wouldn't know it was a it was a beer. The smell of it smelled like whiskey. So, but this one is as a standard one. It's a good session stout, 4.3%, lovely and satisfying, lots of flavour. It's still pretty refreshing, but yeah, very satisfying too. So anyway, go back to the glass, and I don't want to make it too sad. We miss our Woody, and this has got someone else that we miss as well. We've got there one of our regulars from the Micropub. Now, I should have first of all said that this glass is from the Rochford Beer Festival. I'm sure it does say that somewhere. Yeah, Rochford Beer Festival, 2017. Okay, 2017, and it's our local Camera Branches beer festival held in the Freight House at Rochford in November. Lots of local beer festivals sadly been cancelled this year by necessity. This one's quite a way off, so we're hoping still that one might still be able to occur. But this was 2017, and this chap here, Dave, known as Dave the Mallet, you can see his mallet there. He was a chap who used to go round whacking the taps into all the into all the cast there, and he was a great guy. We regular at the Micropub as well. Passed away sadly shortly before then, and these glasses were made in tribute to him, and we actually did a special beer for him called Dave the Mallet, which was very well received. And of course, again, don't want to get too sad, but yeah, his partner Frances sadly passed away back in March as well. So again, a much loved regular at the pub. So and it's really a tribute to her because she loved the WoodysBark. So we'll raise a glass when we're all back to normal. We're going to have a get together and raise a glass for Frances. Her glass is still in the Micropub, but definitely this one is in honour of Frances for tonight. Okay, right. So cheers, Frances. Hopefully you're looking down on us. Okay. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about how you make the beer. So we talked last week about the 4 different ingredients. You've got the water, you've got the grain, you've got the hops, and you've got the yeast. Last week we talked about the hops. This time we're going to talk about the grain. So that's what makes a beer is that it's got grain in there, and the grain is an important thing because that gives you the sugar, and from the sugar comes the alcohol. That's what makes the beer. Okay, so the main grain that we use in our beers and most classic beers, British beers, is barley. Some of our beers we use a few other grains, like a little bit of wheat, occasionally a little bit of rye sometimes, occasionally some oats even sometimes, but we particularly use barley. And most of the barley is East Anglian grown barley, meant to be the best place in the world to grow barley for beer, and definitely for a classic British style. Now, what happens with the barley when it is harvested? It goes to a maltster, okay, and the maltster takes that grain and leaves it damp and warm for several days. It fools the grains thinking that it's germinating. Now, grain as it's harvested will have starch. Now, our yeast is the magic ingredient in beer that turns sugar into alcohol, but it can't turn starch into alcohol. So you have to convert that starch in the grain into alcohol, and that's the malting process, the first part of that. There's amazing amount of chemistry that goes on in that malting process of the breaking down of the grain, and in particular, just in simple terms, it's breaking down the starch, which is a great big long molecule, into smaller molecules, the sugars, which the yeast can get to work on to turn into alcohol. Now that process starts in the maltsters. Okay, the first start. Okay, so the main grain that we use in our beers is this one here, pale malt. Okay, so if you look in our Mayflower Gold, our Sex, Drugs and Rock and Roll, in fact, all our beers, even one like this, WoodysBark, at least 80% of the grain is still this pale malt. So, unfortunately, you can't taste it, but there you go. Grain, Can't even show you. There it is. If you look, it's a bit powdery because after the malting process, well, after it's been left for several days, germinating, and that starts to turn sugar, it's then dried out and it's then milled, so you can actually get into that inside the grain. So that's the malt in there. Okay, so that's pale malt. Now to get this dark colour here, what actually happens after this it's been dried out is it's roasted. Okay, and it's roasted different degrees. Now something like Billericay Dickey or Ravensstick or Amber beers, it's roasted slightly to get sort of something like what's called a caramel malt or a crystal malt. Okay, so it's roasted slightly, you get sort of things like caramel and toffee flavours. Now in WoodysBark, the malt that goes into there is roasted at really high temperatures, very high temperatures, over 200 degrees, and actually it's almost the same. If you did it much higher than that, it actually bursts into flames, so it's actually quite a risky thing. Actually, the main malt stores use have actually had a couple of fires recently, nothing too seriously, thankfully, but yeah, it's the dust is one hazard with these, but yeah, roasting those at really high temperatures, you have to be careful. So in WoodysBark, we use what's called chocolate malt. So here you can see totally dark as anything. Okay, it's called chocolate malt, but no chocolate is actually added into there. It's actually just the malting process and the roasting that it goes through that gives that chocolate flavour. So I'm really sad that you can't actually taste this, but yeah, come along to one of our beery tours once the lockdown's finished. We'll start them up sort of later on this year, and you can taste some of these. And tiny little amount of this has got an amazing intense chocolate and bitter coffee flavours and lots of amazing flavours. And we only use something like less than 10% of that in WoodysBark, and it gives that amazing dark colour and that amazing chocolate flavour to it. So that's where we get the chocolate flavour, that's where we get all the chocolate coffee flavours from there, and then we should get the dark colour as well. Okay, looks like Guinness, but from my opinion, far more flavour than Guinness. Okay, and as I say, it's got a natural head onto it, natural carbonation. It's not got that big fluffy sort of head that you get from Guinness in the pub. Okay, another drink. So that's our story of WoodysBark. That's our story of how we make WoodysBark. Okay, we've got lots of bottles of this at the moment. We can also do our poly pins of this, which remember our bagging box, so you can get draft beer of that. Just remind you, we're still doing our delivery service has been really popular, and we can deliver sort of local areas, Billericay sort of Wednesday through to Saturday. Also delivered down to Basildon, that's normally on Friday. We can deliver to Chelmsford and Ingatstone, again that's normally Thursday or Friday. Brentwood, Friday and Saturday, and Southend, Rayleigh, Wickford, those sort of areas, again on a Friday. So we're delivering in bottles or poly pins, remember the bagging box, 5, 9 or 18 pints of this, so you can have a proper real ale at home to enjoy. Okay, so remember that if you do want to order some of that, give us a phone call. We'll open tomorrow all day and Friday and Saturday all day, 01277 500 121, or send your phone number to sales@billericaybrewing.co.uk, and we'll call you back, and then you can arrange an order and delivered to your doorstep. So contactless free delivery. Okay, so enjoy that. So other things just to let you aware of. So these Facebook Lives we'll be doing every week. So every week we'll be doing different beer. So next week we'll do at 7 o'clock. Will be another different beer. And once the video's been done, it'll still be on Facebook. So if you miss it live on the day, don't worry, you can catch up with it. And then we're posting all our videos on our YouTube channel as well. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. You might get a few other ones, and then all the videos we've ever done are on there, so you can actually go back and enjoy those as well. Now, a couple of other virtual events. So normally the last Thursday of the month is our vinyl night. Some of you know Dell, who brings his decks along and spins a great variety of old vinyl there, well, old and new vinyl on there. Great, really popular night, and I know lots of you are really missing that. So we're going to do next week, Derek's going to organise a virtual vinyl night, so look out for details of that. It'll be the normal time, last Thursday of the month, so Thursday of next week. We'll be having a virtual vinyl night, and of course our virtual quiz night the first Thursday of the month. Seb's organising that as well. I think I had over 20 teams the first time we did it, which is amazing. We couldn't do that in the micropub. So we look forward to that first Thursday of the month as well in May. So we'll do another virtual quiz there. Okay, so it's great to get out to visit you. People are so pleased to see us delivering beer. Hopefully keeping you so you're not going too mad there. And hopefully you're surviving without the micropub. Hopefully you're keeping healthy, you're keeping safe. There's bad sides to this, but there's lots of good sides to it as well, in that we can take a little pause and relax and things, and we can still get to drink our beer, which is fantastic as well. And we're doing everything we can. Now we brewed twice last week, brewed Rhythm Stick, brewed Nausea Gold, and they'll be a feature in Facebook Lives coming up. We hope they'll be ready next week. We can't guarantee that because we have to make sure that the beer actually ferments and conditions well in the bottles. But hopefully we'll have those two next week. And last week we brewed Billericay Dicky. So yeah, those bottles of that are ready as well now. So we've got we're getting back to having a better variety of bottles. We sort of because the demand for bottles was so high. We didn't have a great variety, but now we've got we'll have the Rhythm Stick, we'll have we'll have an Old Nausea Gold next week. We've got Billericay Dicky, we've got the WoodysBark, we've got Sex, Drugs and Rock and Roll, we've got Mayflower Gold. We've got a good variety, hopefully something to suit everyone, and we've also got some wine back as well, some New Hall wine, so you can get some of that in as well. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you again next week. Cheers. Here's Francis, Dave and Woody. Cheers.